Welcome to Tekedia Daily. I'm Ndubuisi, Ekekwe. A conversation today will focus on how we can boost initial public offers, mainly startup companies in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. What we are looking over the years is essentially how can we bring capital to accelerate innovation in the African continent. Of course, Nigeria is a very big part of this because we have the most populous people in that country. And looking at the West African market, Nigeria has a very huge impact. So it's very natural that if Nigeria gets things right, Nigeria will be that ecosystem where other African countries, especially their startups, will be looking to come and list their equities. So we are around 10 trillion naira in total market capitalization in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. Relatively, that is a very huge number. Of course, at the global arena, people may say it's not big, but for us, it's just making progress from where we started. And there are so many companies in West Africa and also across Africa that may necessarily like to tap into that ecosystem. But unfortunately, not many of them are looking. So from Iroko partners to even some of the new ones like some of the new ones we are seeing to the old legends like System Spec. These are companies that should be in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. And they are not necessarily just going to be the Nigerian Stock Exchange. They actually go in there not just to raise capital, but also to bring more opportunity for people to participate in the growth drivers of the 21st century. I want to see Flora Wave, Nigeria Stock Exchange. I want to see Paystack. And I also want to see my own company, Fast Micro there. So how can the Nigerian Stock Exchange make this thing possible? The first thing I believe is that they have to reduce the listing cost. It's really very expensive. With all the rudimentary bureaucracy that is involved, people spend a lot of money getting to the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And they have to figure out how to automate most of the processes. How do we automate the IPO process? From due diligence to electronic filing to legal issues to autofills and generate standard reports, which are going to make it possible for companies to actually comply with all the regulatory requirements without spending a lot of money. So even post-IPO, how can the Nigeria Stock Exchange simplify the whole process? But I think the biggest one is when we get into the real-time web trading ecosystem. How can somebody in America buy Nigeria stock right there on the spot, on the internet, without the necessity of sending money to Nigeria and going through all the kinds of things that we are doing today? I want to experience an opportunity like stock trade, get into stock trade. I just buy Nigerian stock in the Nigeria Stock Exchange, right on my PC. But the big one here today is that we have to waive all requirements for underwriting for these startups. In other words, how do we make it possible that these companies can essentially get into the Nigeria Stock Exchange and tap into that fairly relative liquidity without necessarily at the point they are going through the IPO for them to need any underwriter? Because the problem of getting an underwriter in Nigeria may actually be very difficult, but there is a possibility that are private investors that will support these startups when they are listed. Nigeria has some elements of this right now in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. But what I'm asking here for startups, especially technology-enabled startups, we have to waive any requirement for underwriting. So they don't have to go into the market to raise fresh capital. They are simply going into the market to become direct listers, which will now open them for opportunity for private investors to actually invest in them. And as these private investors are investing in them, great things will happen. If their stocks appreciate, they can now make the kill. And then those private investors will also benefit in it. I do believe even if we do this, we are going to see more startups listed in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. And we're also going to see more liquidity coming from private investors. This is very critical, and it's time that we do it because we need these companies to provide the engine of growth that we have been looking for in the country. You are listening to Tekedia Daily. Thank you.